What's going on, Badger Nation? It is a beautiful, wonderful start of the new year. At least we're recording this on December 31st. So hopefully you're listening to this in the new year and you are off to a fantastic start of the new year. Bobby, how do you expect 2021 will go for you?
Well, I think across most every advertising platform, we saw a shift in the way either advertisers go about their advertising or the way consumers buy. We had most of the year to sort of at first scramble and then learn how to change things if need be, or how to improve upon the increased at-home shopping demand. So 2021, I think, should be smoother overall, but I also think to expect the increase to continue for the staying at home and shopping.
No doubt about it. It's like every year the news is the same. It's like, guess what? Amazon had another record year. And guess what? E-commerce sales are up all over the place on Amazon and off Amazon. So the trend will continue until we have Boston Dynamic robots sending us our packages, just running, just walking around, just cities full of Boston Dynamic robots carrying packages.
Do you think if in the future when we can buy our own little home butler Boston Dynamics robot, they'll just like piggyback one over to you and drop them off?
Right, exactly. We were talking before the call what the New Year's song is about. Auld Lang Syne, may all acquaintance be forgot. Why would you want to forget about your acquaintances?
Those are lyrics I never bothered to learn, even though I've probably heard the song, over 34 times since I'm 34 years old. So I've heard it at least 34 times. I never bothered to learn the lyrics, so I couldn't even begin to tell you what that song is about.
I like my acquaintances. I don't want to forget about them. Also, I don't even think those are the lyrics I'm saying right.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know. We didn't bother to look it up. But
what is an Auld Lang Syne? Do you know? If so, please let me know. I think the song wasn't written in English originally. It was.
That could be.
I'm picturing maybe some old English, some kind of minstrel singing a song.
Or back when they didn't like people as much and they want to forget all their acquaintances.
Boom. Big shout out to Bobby for joining us on the show today. Bobby, one of my definitely top 10 Midwesterners that I know.
So I better be cracking that top 5.
Yeah. Bobby and I have worked together for a very long time. A little bit at Ad Badger, a little bit at Search Scientist, PPC for almost as long as me. It's great to have you on the show. Just recently in a pre-COVID world, I was sitting at a coffee shop and you snuck up behind me. So you surprised us with an Austin trip, which was really fun.
That was almost a year ago, shockingly. February, was it not?
It feels like yesterday and also 10 years ago.
I know. Actually, my koozie is the Print Austin art show that we went to in February.
Bobby, what are we talking about today?
Well, we are going to get nuggets of information from your brain about new reporting types for display advertising. And we're excited to learn about what they are. Are they useful? Do you think they will improve over time? And really just getting your 2 cents on them.
I'll give you a couple more cents than just 2, my friend. So let's jump into it. Here we go. There's 4 new reports, and let's do it.
So for anyone out there who does not know about these, what do you mean when you say advertising reports?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question to even begin with. We have advertisers from launching their first campaign all the way to professional marketers listening to this podcast. And I thought it would be a really cool thing to do at the start of the show. And first, even define and remind people what advertising reports are. We've talked about these on the show before, but really never really defined what they are and what their purpose is. So basically, when you log into advertising.amazon.com and you're looking at your campaigns, you're basically looking at the campaign manager or the ad console. And what does that mean? That is where you go. You can create new campaigns, create new keywords, targets, whatever. And if you think about it, when you're looking at a product ad inside Campaign Manager, there's a mountain of information that you just don't see that the user interface wouldn't be suitable to include all the extra information inside Campaign Manager. So what Amazon has done, and what Google Ads has done, and even Facebook Ads did this at one point, is they had another section inside their Campaign Manager to just download extra information. So I sort of think of it as like everything that you look at in Amazon, you're really only looking at a minutia of what actually is underneath the surface. So if you think about it, when you look at a keyword click on a certain day or a keyword summary from the last 30 days, that one keyword or that one product ad has a mountain of information behind it. The day that it happened, the day of the week, the exact date, the time of day, what the page it was that it got displayed on, what kind of audience information the person clicked on it is part of. So there's so much information that we don't get access to in the normal Campaign Manager. They created the advertising reports to give you an opportunity to dig in a little deeper. Now, these reports can be in one of two formats. The first could be surface level. And what that means is surface level, it's just sort of repeating information from the Campaign Manager. Or maybe it's adding one or two extra columns, nothing too crazy, deep, and insightful. We don't get that big mountain of information, but maybe we get a few extra rows. Then there's sort of deeper level reports. This is where it's showing you many additional metrics you just can't get in normal Campaign Manager, many additional metrics that wouldn't make sense to put inside Campaign Manager to have it be a clean and concise and smooth experience. We talked about different kinds of reports a few weeks ago. We had our buddy Brent on the show, and we were talking about different kinds of sponsored brand data that lets you compare your ads versus your competitor ads. That might not make sense to view when you're inside Campaign Manager, but it does make sense to include somewhere, and Amazon has chosen to put it in these Excel downloadable reports, and you can just find these right in the top left. You click on the hamburger menu. You know about a hamburger menu? They should make the icon an actual hamburger. It's just the 3 lines.
Yeah.
And you click that hamburger menu, you click on your reports, and then you can download them. I highly recommend, if you haven't done this, you go to that reports section, you prompt it to download it, and then you click repeat. You can have these reports recur so that you never lose any data. This is really the only way to not lose data. It's a very cumbersome process if you're not using some kind of tool that allows you to store data for long periods of time. But in short, this is the purpose of these advertising reports. Sponsored Display just released 4 new ones. They went from 0 reports to 4 reports. We're going to break those down and talk about what kind of value there is behind these.
Yeah. So typically when we talk about something like this on a podcast, or even if it was a blog post or whatever, big takeaways are kind of at the end, like a summary, what people really should know about these reports. But it's the new year. Everyone's refreshed. Hopefully they're ready to hit the ground running. So I want to hear your big takeaways right at the start, and then we'll break them down as we go. So you've had time to review all 4 reports. What are your biggest takeaways?
This is a really good question, Bobby. Why is, people are always waiting till the end of the show to get the info, like the big fat takeaways. People are busy, new year, got a lot of stuff to do. It's a good point. So my big takeaways are, first, you absolutely, positively, in order to get the most value from these reports, you need to name your campaigns clearly and concisely. I believe it was an early episode of this podcast where we talked about naming things. Your campaign names need to be named clearly, concisely, because there's so many different kinds of sponsored display campaign targeting types, and you're going to want that information in the campaign title because you don't get that information in the reports. So if you have that in the title, everywhere you navigate, you can see exactly where you need to go, exactly what you need to do, exactly what's inside so you can make better decisions. So this includes, generally it's the ASIN or the SKU that's inside of it, or maybe a SKU family or like a product description. It's going to be the SD for sponsored display. You're going to have some kind of acronym for audience targeting sponsored display versus product targeting sponsored display. So I would also go even further. Like when I'm thinking of the idealized best way to name sponsored display campaigns, we're going to have all that info, maybe a target ACOS in there, as well as SD, audience, and then PP for product pages, KW for targeting people that are searching for similar keywords, product purchasers. You're going to have that audience-based info in the campaign name, as well as if it's going to be a product targeting sponsored display too, you're going to want that info. And it's so valuable because some of these are going to be CPC-based campaigns, some of these are going to be CPM-based campaigns, and both of these, analyze data differently. So there's no doubt about it, and I'm sure you feel the same. Every single high-performing account that I log into from a marketer that is sharp, you go and look at their campaigns, and everything is named. It doesn't have to be the format that I like to use, but everyone has thought about their campaign names, and that is true universally in Amazon, Google Ads, and Facebook ads. Would you say?
Yeah, it's such a basic thing, but you got to get it down. You're only going to save yourself headaches down the road in the future. And, you and I have both audited probably thousands of campaigns by this point. Nothing crushes my spirit a little more than when I open up a campaign and I see ad set 1. And then everything is nestled under that. So yeah, get this down. You're doing yourself a huge favor.
People will write in and be like, I just found the podcast. I named my campaigns, and they didn't do anything else. They just named the campaigns. They're like, holy crap, it's so much better to work through these campaigns.
Absolutely.
And this becomes even more important when you're looking at the sponsored display reports, because all of these nuances you're not going to be able to get from the reports. So you need to shove those in your campaign and ad group names. But back to the takeaway of the actual value of these reports, I would say that these reports, the utility is low to medium. I highly suggest that everyone goes and downloads the 4 reports just to see for themselves. We're going to describe them here. But I would say the utility is a little bit low to medium because sponsored display is so varied. Basically 4 different targeting types. You have different products, different life cycles, all these different things. You have places where these ads appear. So I really do believe the biggest way to optimize sponsored display or any display ad where you are creating an ad and then it's going out into the internet on Amazon and off of Amazon, those pages that it's displayed on, those different product pages, those different keywords that trigger it, there's all these different things that are triggering it are going to behave differently. So anytime you have this is basic stuff. When you have a broad match keyword that you're appearing for potentially hundreds of different searches, how do you optimize a broad match keyword? Well, you go and you look at what you appeared for and you trim the fat. You look at the trends of what you appeared for and you trim even more fat because you only get data for things that actually got the click. But you can see what you appeared for, trim the fat, and that's where all the gold comes from, these extra reports. If you can even see more data, I wish we could see even more, but you'd go and you'd really just trim the fat. And unfortunately with, sponsored display, there's a sponsored display targeting type that lets you target people who are searching keywords similar to your product. And unfortunately, we did not get that data inside the sponsored display. So it's kind of tough to get lots of utility out of it. My biggest takeaway is, we've talked about this on the show before, is using a pivot table to view summarized data. So what I mean by that is, we're going to get into a report that basically, tells you your targeting. So what advertised product you are advertising. And if you have that product in a lot of different places, now what you can do with this, sponsored display report, you can view that product's performance across the board, segmented out by each different targeting type to identify trends and to allow you to trim some fat or amplify some gold in that regard. So that's my biggest takeaway. We'll run through the rest of these 4 reports relatively quickly, but that's the big takeaway. Should you use them? Yes. I'd probably put this on a twice a month or once a month cadence, twice a month for maybe a larger account, once a month for a smaller account to view it. And I'm going to talk on this show potentially identifying some trends that I saw when I was working through them. But so there's definitely some goodness here, but the utility isn't going to be as big as like a keyword search term report from sponsored products.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And these, they're version ones, these reports. I'm sure that they will evolve over time and maybe hopefully become more useful and include more information. So getting familiar with them now will set you up for better success down the road. And those were all great takeaways, and it may seem overwhelming when you listen to kind of Mike run through all that stuff, but it's really not. You just break it down as we talk about them. Download the report with us as we're talking about it. We'll kind of give you our high-level thoughts on them, and then take it from there. Like, you only got to do it once a month, maybe twice, like he was talking about. So just start to chip away at it. You'll learn as you go, learn from kind of listening to us, and you should be all set.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. So let's dive into the actual 4 reports. The first new report is called the Advertised Product Report. So why don't you go ahead and walk us through that first one?
Yeah, this one's super straightforward. It's good that we're starting here because it really is, described in the title. So it's a sponsored display advertised product report. So really what all this is earlier in the show we talked about like surface level metrics versus deeper level metrics. This is definitely a surface level metric report. So all you really see is, your campaign name, your ad group name, the SKU and the ASIN that you are advertising, basic metrics like impressions, click-through rate, spend, sales, ordered units, ROAS, ACOS. They threw in conversion rate, which is really fun to see. I love conversion rate, but you don't really see conversion rate in many reports. So I'm stoked they threw that in, but that's it. So here's where naming the campaigns can be helpful. So you can basically run analysis using a pivot table to view sort of similar things. You could filter this data. So you could say, only show me ad groups that have the word, fish oil inside of them. Only show me, that have the word black watches inside of it. So that'll allow you to filter things down and view data quickly when you're inside Excel. Running the pivot table on an ASIN can be super helpful. So if you wanted to answer a question, how much did I spend on, ASIN A over this time period in my sponsored display campaigns, and how much revenue did it generate inside my sponsored display campaigns? That information is a little hard to view, but with a pivot table, you can just download the report, open it up. Inside Excel, you just go to data and, create a pivot table. It just spits it out. You build your pivot table, and then all of a sudden you can start to view these summed up metrics. So that's why you would use it if you're trying to analyze your individual product performance across your sponsored display. This is where you would do it. It's not 100% clear how Amazon is going to handle these searches it's not clear how they're going to handle view through conversions as well as click through conversions because sponsored display does have both. So I'm curious there on how they will sort of handle those. And for anyone that doesn't know, definitely go back and listen to the podcast a few episodes ago that I did with our pal Brent, because we talked about how different kinds of sponsored display is measured differently, meaning sometimes you get view through conversions, meaning somebody just has to view the product. And then in other sponsored display, someone has to click on it and get the conversion. So it's not entirely clear how these things are listed. I believe they're, fingers crossed. I think they're doing something where they're going to like merge these or just change the way that this data is displayed. But it's not entirely clear how this plays out. It's also a little bit odd that they're CPM-based campaigns, meaning you're paying by the impressions, and others where you're paying by click, and that information isn't available here. It's almost like maybe somebody forgot to include it. So not super strong utility here, but I think if you pivot table your products on this, getting some data like how much you spent on product A, product B, how much revenue it generated across all of your sponsored display campaigns, And then if you use a pivot table right, and just play with the pivot table, because Google Sheets and Excel has a pivot table builder. If you play with both of those things, what will happen is you can say, okay, revenue generated by product A, revenue generated by product B, and then nested underneath that, what campaigns contributed to it. So you can do these cool little pie charts. You can do this cool little table showing you how the product performed across all your sponsored display, as well as what types of sponsored display are performing best for that product, and then continue to invest in the ones that do best and limit the ones that are lagging behind.
Yep. So if you haven't kind of identified the theme so far, it's pivot tables. If you haven't played with them, there's a ton of how-tos. They're pretty simple and very useful. So if you've never used a pivot table, now is the perfect time to jump into it.
Oh yeah, this is a great entry point to pivot tables, because it's going to be so straightforward. Because you're going to be looking at it, you're like, okay, I advertised this product in like 3 different sponsored display campaigns. Do I filter this data to see this combined? No, you would use a pivot table.
Awesome, good stuff. All right, let's move right on to the second new report, and it is simply called the campaign report. It sounds like a thriller movie. I don't know. How can advertisers use the campaign report?
So the campaign report, it's going to be another surface level report. The sponsored display campaign report, I'm looking at it right now, super surface level, in the sense of this is literally just, if you were to go inside the campaign manager or the ad console and just say, view my campaign type sponsored display, this is exactly it. You don't get any extra metrics, significant ones that you can't just get inside the ad console. I mean, it's listing your campaign, the budget, impressions click, CTR, spend, cost per click, really basic stuff. One little interesting tidbit that I'll comment here is that it says clearly in the column header, it's telling you 14-day orders, 14-day total sales, 14-day conversion rate, all of that stuff. If anyone's unfamiliar with that, basically, if somebody clicks on an ad on January 1st, but then they actually end up buying the product on January 10th, where does that revenue end up getting attributed to? Well, when you download a report like this, it would be attributed in that 14-day window. And then it actually like sends it back to that January 1st when they clicked on it as a 14-day order. It's an order that happened within 14 days of clicking it. So what does that mean? And this really is an aside, not so much about this report, but it's just a reminder for people that don't know. If you look at your December data on January 1st, it might say, $10,000 in sales. If you look at it again on February 1st, an entire month later, it might have changed from 10,000 in sales to maybe sometimes 5%, maybe sometimes in extreme cases, 20% more revenue. So this is a phenomenon of this time delay, this conversion lag. It's a good reminder that they put this here. So people see this, they say, oh, orders are happening on a delayed basis. I am always cautious to people, hey, don't make super big changes based off, the last 5 days of data. If your previous time periods were super healthy and then you're having like a bad few days, don't totally jump the gun just yet, because Amazon not only has this time delay, but it's a little buggy too. So it's definitely something to be aware of. I like how they display it here. I wish that they had 7-day orders. I wish they had 1-day orders. It has that happen in 1 day, 7-day, 14-day, 30-day orders, so that you'd be able to compare and contrast. Do you have are you in an industry where there's a lot of delayed orders, or do you have products that maybe do not have a lot of delayed orders? This would allow you to really look at your data and know for sure, hey, maybe I should wait until January 10th or January 15th to evaluate December, as opposed to, hey, I rarely have any 14-day orders. Most of mine are 1-day orders. So it'd be cool to have that data. But in short, this is the sponsored display campaign report, fairly basic. Again, a pivot table will be helpful here, because you can draw a pivot table that says, show me all the campaigns that have, audiences search-based sponsor display, or show me all the campaigns that have audiences view remarketing in the campaign title. So if you have it in the campaign title, you can run a pivot table at this point and then compare all of your audiences based targeting. You can view your product targeting campaigns, your sponsored display ones. So it allow you to mix and match and group how you view these products, these different targeting types of your sponsored display. So this one's fairly straightforward. There's some takeaways there on how to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I really like that you kind of brought that up as sort of like a side note about the 14-day window. So even from a kind of straightforward basic report like this, it does get you thinking, and it stresses patience. All too often we see advertisers, like you were talking about, want to make these big sweeping changes, when in reality, even 5% to up to 20%, like you were saying in some cases, that can be a big deal to a lot of advertisers. So, it can be nerve-wracking. It's a very personal thing. But when in doubt, we always stress patience when it comes to things like that. So definitely a good point to bring up for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So next report is the sponsored display target report. What do we need to know about that?
So this one is very similar to a sponsored product targeting or sort of keyword report, where it's showing you what you are bidding on. So again, another surface-based report. This would be like you're downloading a sponsored product report and you're looking at your keywords and it'll say, I'm bidding on running shoes broad match, and then it'll tell you the performance for that broad match keyword. It will not tell you the search terms that you actually ended up appearing for. So, you're bidding on broad match running shoes. You could show up for men's running shoes and women's running shoes and so on and so forth, lots of variations. This would only show you the route, the running shoes, not the things that you appeared for. That being said, some of these, it doesn't matter if that makes sense, because if you're targeting a competitor's ASIN, that's similar to it's sort of like an exact match in that case. If you're doing sponsored display product targeting. If you're doing sponsored display sort of views retargeting, sort of saying, target products that are similar to this, or target this exact product, you're missing out on some of that data. So if you're targeting people that have searched products related to yours, you're not going to be able to see those searches that they made. So again, some utility here. It could show you insight into top performing and worst performing targets in mass. So one type of analysis that you should be doing is really just, hey, because it's difficult to get inside Amazon, especially as you have over 20 sponsored display campaigns, and you have 50 sponsored display campaigns, and you're looking at that and you want to know what are the best things that I have, what are the worst things that I have, and so that you can go in there and basically trim the fat on some of these misbehaviors. This report will allow you to find those misbehaviors fast and quickly. So if you have 100, 200, 500 targets, and it's split up among many, many different ad groups and many different campaigns, this report will list them all out for you in one place so that you can sort them, sift them, filter them, and take action on the things that are not performing as well as you'd like them to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think of the four that we've talked about or will talk about, this has sort of been my least favorite. It makes more sense the larger your account is, but especially, if you're maybe just starting out, this one not super useful, but still, as time passes, it's good to be aware of it and maybe check in on it, like you were saying, once a month-ish. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So the fourth report, the final report that they have rolled out for us, is the sponsored display purchase product report. What do we got to know about this, and do you think it is useful?
Yeah, so this one basically shows you the SKU and the ASIN that you advertised, and then it shows you what was actually purchased. The purchase report, it's saying you advertised this product, somebody bought either the same product or a different product. Meaning, in the report that I had, 25% of the purchased ASINs were different than the advertised ASIN. So again, what this can start to clue you in on is, hey, if, this number is quite high, if you're finding it, 50% of the people that actually buy a product, they're buying something different than the thing that they clicked on, that could clue you in to maybe, what is it that maybe they're not seeing, that they didn't get. Maybe it doesn't particularly matter in your industry as long as the ACoS is good. So there's a lot of, sort of takeaways that you can get if people are buying something that they didn't from you, that they didn't actually click on. And the thing that's worth knowing here, this is the purchased product report. So this doesn't tell you, hey, a lot of people clicked on the ad, but then a whole bunch of people dropped off. So it's sort of showing it to you only in the positive light. It's saying, yes, somebody clicked on this, but hey, don't worry, they purchased something else. You don't really get the product ad data in this report. You get it in another one of these reports. But it'd be cool to see, this is how many clicks your ASIN got, and this is like the purchased product matchup percentage. So when somebody clicks on this product, they're buying that product in a high percentage. Or if somebody clicks on this product and it has a super low purchase product matchup, then that can maybe clue you in that says, hey, there's something off here potentially. Now, there's one thing that this report has that the other ones don't, and that is this concept of halo sales. Amazon loves to talk about halo sales, and then this basically means it's a little unclear. If you were to go and search for information on this and ask 10 people, I bet you would get 10 slightly different answers on what a halo order is. But basically, a halo order is when somebody purchased something other than the thing that they clicked on. So this could include a product that you're not even advertising. But if they click on a product that you are advertising, then they buy something else, that would sort of count as a halo sale. They're not clear on this. Like, in a perfect world, it would tell me this led, like, somebody that clicked on this ad eventually, bought something potentially outside of an attribution window, potentially way later outside an attribution window. Maybe because they clicked on this ad, in January, they eventually bought something in March. Some kind of extreme brand halo, brand lift. I'd love to see something like that. But here we have a 14-day brand halo sale window. Just sort of, it's great because it starts to clue you in as to the true impact of your ads. Granted, it doesn't take us all the way there. I'd love to see that full brand lift metric, some kind of coefficient that really lists it all out for me. So this is okay. I think the most important part of this is sort of seeing if the product you're advertising is the product that people are actually buying a lot. I think if you combine this data with your advertised product report, you can then start to piece together, hey, this product's conversion rate is very low because a lot of people are clicking on it, they're not buying it, they end up buying something else. That can make you question, should I be advertising this product or the one that people are actually buying? And then you can compare the click-through rate of both of these and the conversion rate of both of these and help you really sculpt a campaign that really puts your best foot forward in the biggest way possible.
Mm-hmm. So it almost sounds like you wish they would have smushed some of these together instead of segmenting out to 4.
Yeah. The other Michael on the PPC team here, we were just talking about putting out an episode which talks about just that. If you have report A over here, report B over here, report C, let's say you have a sponsored product report and a sponsored display report and a sponsored brand report. And what kind of analysis could you do if you were to combine these reports? Let's say you have organic data or internal data from somewhere else. What could you do if you started combining these things? So there's definitely some Excel skills, some spreadsheet skills that would come in that territory. And that might be a really good separate episode that we could publish in the future, because people that can analyze data really quickly and smoothly and know sort of the Excel tricks or hacks or strategies, techniques in order to get there, it's like they have a PPC superpower. So being able to analyze data, it's key.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's all really good information. Little left to be desired with each report. But like we were talking about, they may evolve and give us more insight, kind of lumped together like you were talking about. That's all good stuff.
Yeah. I think ultimately I'm a little unsatisfied. I think for me, like the biggest thing would be something equivalent to a search term report where, hey, this is what you bid on. These are the placements where your sponsored display appeared. Would you like to trim some of these placements? Would you like to negative placement a few of these? That I think would be my ultimate dream. Because you don't get that, there's definitely some analysis that you can get here faster than trying to piece it together in the campaign manager, like some of those combined pivot table reports. So there's definitely some goodness, but I wouldn't say these are going to become my absolute favorite reports in the world just yet. And I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, a lot to digest. Hopefully you were able to maybe download these kind of live while we were talking about them and get kind of a grasp on what you're looking at, what will work for you, what information you can pull from them.
And the other thing too, I'm going to start doing something new when these episodes go live, and these episodes normally go live on Wednesdays. I'm going to start a thread inside of our Facebook group to start talking about these, pull out extra insight. Sometimes it's crazy. Like sometimes, this gets recorded and then it gets released like a week or so later and something has already changed. I definitely expect these sponsored display reports to continue to evolve, continue to get better. So it's possible. I mean, the episode that I did with our friend Destiny a few weeks ago, one of our wish list items was sponsored display reports. And then between the time that we recorded it and published it, there were sponsored display reports already published. When these podcasts get published, I'm going to be jumping into the Facebook group, starting some threads talking about it. So head on over to adbadger.com/Facebook and be sure to tune in. Last question for you, Bobby. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
No. And I only say that because I've now moved. I'm one of those probably annoying people who think, why do you need to wait for a certain date to set a new goal? So that was actually one of the things I worked on in 2020 while sitting at home alone for so much time is, you don't need to wait for something to make a change. So no, not big on the resolutions, not even really big on New Year's Eve. I like sleep. So staying up till midnight is not really appealing to me.
Well, you heard it right there. I think that's really good insight. How about we value sleep going into the new year? How about we stay well rested, get that sleep score up?
That sounds good to me.
Yes, we'll have a good one, everybody, and I'll see you next time here on the Badger Den. Bye-bye, everybody.